Hi, Kel. Thanks for joining us and welcome to our episode of this. And hope we'll have a good time for next few minutes.
Great. It was great to join you from halfway around the world.
Yeah. So just to start with, Baratza was born in 1999, maybe at your home.
Yes.
So what was the idea, or how did the idea came up? Was there a need for grinder, or there was not enough grinders, or there was no importance for grinder? What's all about?
The main thing for us is, I mean, there's lots of grinders in the world. There were then and there are now. But Kira and I saw was there really was a kind of an emptiness, a void in the marketplace for high-end household grinders. There were and there still are lots and lots of high quality commercial grinders. And there were lots of very inexpensive whirlybird type home grinders. But nothing much was being done in the what we consider the specialty coffee side of home coffee grinders. And so we saw an opening there for us to be able to move into that we really felt was underserved. So that's why the real reason we went into it. We were surprised by how quickly a grinder that we were importing from Solus was received, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, this is this is kind of amazing." So that's when we decided to make our own grinder.
Okay. So how long it took from you decided to come up with a machine which was grinding?
We came up with the idea in I think it was January, and we brought it to market. Our first production units in September, so it was about 8.5 months. So it was pretty quick, and but we like to do things quickly at Baratza anyway. So
Is there any kind of DNA which always Baratza grinders and all across the models are something common, something you follow that like that?
yeah, I would say that the most important part of our DNA is that with a Baratza grinder, we put the vast majority of our cost of manufacturing on the inside, not on the outside. And so every grinder we produce, we start with the core part of the grinder is the burrs, the motor, the grinding and adjusting mechanism, and that's where all of our grinders excel, is in their performance. Sometimes they put our grinders up against other grinders that have nice metal bodies on them, and ours doesn't. It's got plastic. That's because we put all the money on the inside, and that's one place we'll never cut corners. So
Yeah.
that really sets us apart in every grinder. The guts on the inside of an Encore are very similar to the guts on the inside of a Virtuoso. I mean, it's just uh, that's where the value is.
Oh. So when you started developing the grinders, were there importance for grind setting, or were people very keen about, like because those days I guess it was more like a guess and grind, or I'm
Yeah.
just trying to.
Well, our thoughts on developing a grinder is that it's a tool, and for a tool to win, to succeed, it needs to be usable and work for the customer. And so, with our grinding mechanisms, our adjusting mechanisms, we strive to allow the customer, the end user, to accurately produce the grind they want. And so we put a lot of attention, a lot of innovation into an adjusting mechanism that doesn't just kind of have you guessing. I mean, you can nail it. So yeah, it's that's an important part of any grinder is having an accurate and repeatable adjusting mechanism.
Thank you. So, like from the time you started developing the grinder and from the time now, how different it is? Like, has the market become very tricky and very precision? Like, grinders are all about now precision, right? So, is do you see that it is very different, or people are respecting the precision, or people are overdoing it?
I overdoing it is probably a personal judgment call. I mean, I think some people can be just, we call them nerding out on coffee, and they just go crazy. But I think you find that in any industry, whether it's automobiles or stereo equipment. Certain people just nerd out, and it's those people that help drive the state of the art in every industry. So as much as they make me crazy, they also inspire me. So I think that the entire niche that we play in, this high end home and small cafe grinder business, is improved not just because of Baratza, but because of the other players, and predominantly the customers that are in that space. So without exception, every innovation we've come up with wasn't my idea. It was a customer's idea, and then we figured
Okay.
out a way to put that in a grinder. But we just listened to our customers. Uh, so yeah, I'd like to say, gee, I'm this creative guy, but I'm not. I just, customer comes up and says, "Have you ever thought about putting a scale in a grinder?" It's kind of like, no, but what if we did it like this? He said, "Oh, that'd be perfect." So we did. Um, but we just listen to our customers, and that's where the great ideas come from. And those are the people pushing the boundaries.
Hmm. So, I mean, like, you were one of the first grinders which came with grind by weight.
Yes, yes.
I don't recollect anybody else doing it. So it was a kind of the whole industry shift because everybody did all these years grind by time, and you came up with a concept of grind by weight, which became in last 5 years or 6 years, or it has become like a benchmark. I mean, like if you see any commercial grinder, everybody is going towards grind by weight.
Yeah, it
It's
took
a
them 10
great.
years to copy us, but yes, it's been so, um, it's, grind by weight actually, it became a real in the US, it became a real, common fad in about 2010 with people doing manual brewing. But what it looked like was they had a little round tin, and they would put it on the scale, and they would add beans to it until the scale showed 18 grams. And then they would take that and they would pour it into the grinder. And so you would walk into coffee shops and you would see like a pyramid of all these little tins that they would stack up in the morning because it's very
Hmm.
slow for the barista to do this. So they were grinding by weight, and it's one of these baristas who came to me and said, "Hey, could you incorporate a scale in the grinder, because it's killing us to have our baristas show up early in the morning and weigh tins of coffee and have all these tins of coffee sitting around the coffee shop." And so grind by weight, as I say, was something that people were doing, but they were weighing and then grinding. They weren't grinding by weight. And so, yes, that's what we developed, as an answer to that workflow headache that many coffee shops in America were doing. And now that style of coffee has spread, and people, rather than grinding by volume for espresso, are also grinding by weight nowadays. So yes, it's become quite the movement.
So it's one of the biggest innovations of Baratza.
Yeah, yeah.
So, is there anything other innovations which came and which impacted the specialty coffee movement?
I the other one that I think was, uh I don't know if I'd say disruptive, but it certainly was unique, and that is, uh the concept of, people have long used stepless grinders in espresso.
Hmm.
And we were always pushed, "Why doesn't Baratza do a stepless grinder?" And I said, "Well, if you're going to do a wide range of grind, from filter coffee to espresso, having a stepless grinder, is very slow to move from one end of that scale to the other." So I said, I'm not in favor of a stepless grinder for our customers, because many of our customers want to buy one grinder for multiple use. So I said, so if we come up with a macro adjustment that moves you from one end to the other, and then when you get there, you have a micro adjustability. And this came again, it wasn't my idea. It came from, my years in college as a biochemist. And we would have a microscope, and the microscope had a big knob and a little knob. So it's like, again, I didn't invent the idea, but we just applied it to a coffee grind. so that we don't have a stepless grinder, but we have the function of a stepless grinder where you need it. But we have the function of a multi-purpose grinder by virtue of a macro grind, so you can move from coarse to fine, and then you can fine tune your espresso. So that's another thing that again, we didn't invent scales. We just we just invented a way to incorporate that to make workflow better for the barista and the home barista.
And there was a period when everybody started saying that precision is one thing, and second, the particle distribution has to be much even.
Mhm.
And that went on for some time, and then again came back to saying that no, you need to have certain percentage of fines to pack the espresso and less channeling. So you had any views on this? Because we see certain grinders or certain market trend that people are going towards making more fine. I always question, why do you need so fine grinding for espresso? And then they start going making breaking the clumps by using a tools. And so what's your take on this?
As I say, I've been in the grinding business, specifically the grinding business, for over 20 years now, and I've worked with Malkunig and Didding and Kiber and many of these burr manufacturers that they actually they know the science of what they're doing. And the funny part about burr design, and I'm sure I'll ruffle some feathers with this, but it's about 80% science and about 20% black magic. I mean, you can think you're going to try this or that with a certain cut of a burr, but at the end of the day, you don't know what you have until you run coffee through it. And then people make up stories. The coffee nerds, they make up stories about whether it's a bimodal distribution is what you need for espresso or a monomodal. In the bimodal, that this little hump down here, that's the fines you're talking about. At the end of the day, it's what do you like in your cup, Gautam? What do you like? And then people try and make up a story about why their cup of coffee that they like is different, and so they want to look at a chart of the grind. Oh, that's it. It's got a big hump down here where the fines are. It's got more fines in it. A lot of people don't really know what it is, and they make up stories around it. And we learn from those stories. And burr manufacturers can then strive to reduce the number of fines in a coffee, or strive to try to increase the number of fines. But coffee is the beans themselves are so widely varied in terms
Yeah.
of where they're grown, how they're processed, how they're roasted, how they're ground, how they're brewed. There are so many variables in coffee. I always find it funny when people like pin on one small little aspect of the entire supply chain of the bean to cup, or I should say from the cherry to the cup. So my attitude around whether you have lots of fines or not lots of fines, it boils down to what you want in your cup. And
Hmm.
some people like a really clean cup, and some people like the nuances that come out with the fines. And again, our job, we make a tool, and our job, whether you're turning a metric wrench or whether you're turning an English wrench, is can you adjust the wrench to get to the nut you want to turn? It's a tool. I say we listen, but there's a certain amount of what actually comes out of the grinder and ends up in your cup. There's a certain amount of that's a little bit of woo woo, a little bit of black magic, and I don't know that we'll ever be smart enough as humans to capture every variable and control it.
That's nice. So now, I think customer service has been something which always Baratza has been doing it. Did it started because you started shipping grinders everywhere because you were one of the first grinder manufacturer or a home appliances grinder manufacturer to give all the parts. I mean, like uh,
Yeah.
so it was more handy because once you buy the grinder, you need the parts if it breaks or if it's not working and stuff like that. So it's something. How did you come up with an online platform to sell these parts, or how challenging was it?
Well, I mean, there's always a bit of work that goes on, with the IT guys to put together a website, and our people would take all the photos and upload them in the website. The real thing is, I mean, that's everyone does that. I mean, you can go lots of places and find people who've got 1,000 parts on their website. For me, the big driver behind that is we wanted our customers to be able to fix their grinder. There are some parts like the paddle wheel inside the grinder that pushes the coffee out. Coffee is an abrasive material and it can wear. And I think it's a $3 part. We do not want our customers throwing a grinder away because of a $3 part. That every 5 or 6 years, 8 years, you might need to change it. It's like, no, we'll
Mm.
have that part be available. And then we don't want them to be without their grinder for a week, having it mailed to us and then sent back and pay us to change it. We'll give them instructions on YouTube. We'll have PDFs because our job is we please customers. The more times they go to their grinder and it works. And so they have a 2 week period where they don't even have a grinder because it's sent in for some stupid repair. It's like, why would we do that? So we've empowered our customers, and so many of our customers are coffee enthusiasts. They're so happy that they not only are allowed, they're encouraged and helped to be able to keep their own grinder going. And then some of our customers, I know it's not surprising, they do it in America. We say you pimp your ride, where you take your grinder and then customize it somewhat. And we've allowed people to do that too. It's made people kind of passionate about their grinder. They might have always been passionate about their espresso machine, but now they really like their grinder too because they can play with it.
So then there's a new trend from last, I think, about a year or two. People spray water on their coffee before grinding, and we have come across some scenarios where they throw a lot of water and it gets jammed, or they rust their burrs. So what's happening? Why is this required, and where did this?
Well, it's actually the notion of spraying a little bit of water, not a lot, but a little bit of water on the coffee beans has been around for a long time because since we started grinding coffee, I don't mean we at Baratza, I mean we as humans. The act of grinding coffee beans can, and in most cases does, generate static. And it's the static that people don't like. The coffee flies around and we've gone to great lengths since 2004 to try and get really innovative to handle static and minimize the static. But for those grinders that don't control the static, or even with a Baratza grinder, if you use a particular bean and you're in a particular place where there's no humidity, adding a little bit of water to the bean can help dramatically control the static that you see. So again, with our grinders, we do our best to minimize static. But if anyone tells you, any grinder manufacturer says our grinder is static free, they're probably not telling you the whole truth because we have yet to see a grinder that in all situations with all coffees is static free. So the water is just a means to control the static. We've done a lot to do that for you. So, it's very, very rare that you might find the need to do that with a Baratza grinder. Very rare. But you might. So anyway, it's just a static reduction thing. Spraying enough water in there that you get it on your burrs and it causes the burrs to rust is probably more water than you need to spray. And the other thing is rust isn't going to hurt you or the burrs. So it may not look pretty, but it doesn't affect their performance.
And another thing, I mean, like there's always customers debate or this is good, that is bad. Is one thing very much is about flat burrs versus conical burrs.
Mm.
So that keeps driving and people keep arguing on it. What do you say about it?
So in America, we have Ford and we have Chevy. In Europe, you got GM and Ford. And people will argue all day long which is better, my GM or my Ford. When people ask me which is better, a flat burr or a conical burr, I tell them, you answer for me which is better, a Ford or GM. And when you give me an answer that all 10 people in a room agree to, then I'll come tell you which burr is better. But as I said earlier in this conversation, it boils down to what you like in a cup of coffee. We have ceramic burrs and metal burrs, and we have similar arguments there. We have some people who prefer the coffee in their cup from the ceramic burr, and others who prefer the steel burrs. It's not that one's better, it's what you like. And so I don't think you're ever going to have, maybe in in time, someone's going to come down and say actually conicals are better. or flats are better. I don't think so because you're always going to have the human element. And at the end of the day, all we're trying to do is allow you to have the cup of coffee you want. And we have both flat burrs and conical burrs. And I don't have a favorite. I just don't. I mean, it comes down to what do you want? So that's, people can sit there and argue all day long, but it's like asking someone what's better, a Cabernet or a Pinot. What do you like? There's not like one's better. So that anyway, that's my opinion.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
absolutely.
know lots of people would argue with me. So I'm fine being wrong.
It's fine. So we come from a market which is very new for specialty coffee
Mhm.
and home brewing coffee for espresso. So traditionally, we come from a Turkish coffee or the other type of brewing at home. So now there's a huge shift in Middle East and Asia and stuff like that, getting into specialty coffee and making into the espresso. So now you have a only grinder. I mean, like one of your sete grinders are the best when people start getting into understanding about the grinding because it's such a easy to train people where to keep up by number
Mhm.
to make it grind and easy for brewing the espresso. So did you come up with this grinder because it was in other markets also people were trying to understand, should I keep it at 6, should I keep it at 7, or how did the zero retention sete came into the picture?
All of the credit for that goes to Christian Etzinger, and Etzinger is the company that makes our conical burrs, all of our burrs for us, conical burrs. And Christian Etzinger is this brilliant engineer, and that is his brainchild. I saw that when I was visiting him in Liechtenstein, I think in like 2009, 2010, and it was just this amazing product. And I mean, it was just the grinding mechanism sitting alone on a table. And I thought, wow, that's really unique. And we saw that we'd like to develop a grinder built around that grinding mechanism, but the actual mechanism, the straight through zero retention, I can take zero credit for that. That's all Christian. He's a brilliant man, and anyway, that wasn't my idea. My idea was to put it in a grinder, in a household grinder.
You have any plans to get into hand grinding? Because we see a trend of every mechanized grinder companies making a hand grinder.
At this point, no. And it's not that we couldn't. For over 10 years, 15 years, people have, as soon as Baratza started innovating, people were like, my gosh, why don't you guys do a commercial grinder? Everyone there is just doing the same old thing they've been doing for 20 years. And it could use some innovation. And I said, the commercial grinder space is full of very high quality grinders. They may be lacking in a little innovation, but they're not lacking in quality, and they're sturdy, and I didn't really see a gap there. And we don't want to produce something just because we can, and especially something that everyone else is already doing. And I maintain that there are some very high quality hand grinders in the market now. And as far as we're concerned, the market is not underserved by manufacturers. And again, going back to kind of our first question about why we get into this, it's because we saw the niche that this home grinder niche of high end, high performance grinders was underserved. And so we moved into a space that was kind of a void. And we don't see a void in the hand grinder market. Is there a market there? You bet. Could we play there? Yep. But there's already lots of people producing good grinders, so it's not really a void. So anyway, that's kind of, I'm always interested in moving into a place where others aren't. And I think it's a well-served market right now.
So COVID was it was a kind of disaster going around. COVID came. Coffee industry was little proof. It was quite a proof, and you had an opportunity to join hands at this point with Breville.
Mhm.
So was it joining hands with the competitor, or it was a good commercial offer, or what made you to sell the business to Breville?
Kira and I have for 6 years prior, have been, because we have to. We're not young. Looking at succession plans for Baratza because we wanted Baratza to survive beyond us, beyond our retirement or beyond us dropping dead. And so we've been having our eyes open, looking at what are our future prospects in terms of either people within the company, employees, competitors, who out there, and we were this was something we were doing between ourselves. I mean, we weren't advertising or anything. We were flattered to have interest expressed by many of the companies who they could be considered competitors, but we were flattered that they were interested in having a run at Baratza potentially, and for most of them, we didn't see the fit. And same was true with Breville in the beginning. Um, Met with Breville, and for over 4 years, we just said no, we don't think Breville and Baratza is a good fit. And it took 4 years of really looking and really having a lot of conversations before we realized that of all the opportunities we had, and we had a number in terms of a succession plan, the vision that Breville had and has for where Baratza fits within their lineup and within the specialty coffee industry, that it really was in fact a good fit. And you could just you can call me a slow learner. It took him, them beating me over the head for 4 years before Kira and I finally said, yeah, maybe this could work. It'd be good. So anyway, it really was, and obviously this was all done and largely decided before COVID hit. And when COVID hit, it was like, whoa, 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 let's wait, let's pause. And we said, fine, let's pause. We were in no rush to sell. Um, and then there were parts of the coffee industry, especially the hardware side in household, that just went skyrocketed during COVID. And so it's like, no, we can go ahead and do this deal, even during COVID, and we did. But it really was part of a larger plan on Kira and my part, that we wanted to have a succession plan for Baratza to continue as a brand and as a company. And even though Breville is a company out of Australia, we are here in Seattle, and we continue to be in Seattle and will continue to be in Seattle, because that's, it's kind of, Seattle is synonymous around the world with Marzocco and all these other, good coffee companies, and we've got a great coffee culture, and we have a great pool to draw from in terms of very educated and skilled employees. So Baratza will really stay Baratza, and for Breville, that's what they wanted in teaming up and acquiring us. So we think it's a good fit.
Good, good. So, do you still actively take part in the business, or you're kind
Oh yeah,
of handing over?
no, not yet. I mean, part of the deal is they wanted Kira and I to continue to be actively involved in the business for at least 3 years. And so and we have been, and I'm working I'm working as many hours a day as I did, before the deal. So no, we're very involved in what's going on with Verizon.
What's next? You see in Baratza, it's like more of grinders coming out, or more of coffee machine, or any new
You know,
innovations coming?
as Baratza, we really, our plan is to stay true to being, in the space, in the coffee grinder space that we are. And within that, you may be aware that we've just introduced it as SCA, our Encore ESP. It's an entry level grinder that I think is going to be very disruptive within the espresso space, because it has the macro and micro adjustability that you find in much more expensive grinders. But we've achieved it through a very simple mechanism that allows us to offer it in an entry level grinder. So it's not in the market yet, not being produced, but we've been testing it and proving it out. And we think it's going to be really fun to see the sort of waves that it causes and the ruckus it causes in the marketplace. So that's the next thing we'll be doing, and then we've got more coming down the road. I mean, we'll always have some fun ideas to bring to market. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
the Encore ESP is the next up.
We look forward for the new grinder.
Oh yeah,
And Kel, thank you so much. Thanks for taking time and talking to our viewers. You
Well,
have any last note that our viewers has to know about grinding? I mean, like, are they missing anything?
no, I'll say just keep talking because we'll keep listening. I mean, it's our users that have all the great ideas. So
Cool,
anyway,
cool.
we're very thankful for our customers and our partners like you. You guys have just been terrific. Um, you're doing great things and growing and educating people. So it's partners like you that have really helped grow Baratza and feed the enthusiasm. So thanks to you and thanks to our customers.
Thank you so much, Kate. Thank you.